Greetings of the day to all the listeners. Thank you so much for joining in and welcome to another episode of Simply Gita. Hope everything is well at your end. Today, we shall start with the 4th chapter of the Gita, where the Lord sheds light on knowledge, action, and also renunciation. So let us resume this journey. The Lord tells Arjuna that he dictated the everlasting knowledge to the god of sun, who in turn shared this knowledge with his son Manu, and Manu gave this knowledge to his own son Ikshvaku. Krishna is a yogi who has existed from before the beginning of time, and he will continue to exist forever. He is a true yogi situated in knowledge and action, and here Shri Krishna mentions to Arjuna about the history of the knowledge of Gita. So Krishna tells that as per tradition, this knowledge was revealed to the upcoming generations, but unfortunately with the passage of time, the rich knowledge of Gita was lost. Once the knowledge is discovered, it slowly starts spreading among people. Now the knowledge of Gita has been passed down since thousands of years, but there was a time when this knowledge was lost. Just like the treasure is not kept in the open, in the same way, mysteries and pure knowledge is not open and easy for anyone to obtain. It comes gradually through a process. Krishna tells that Arjuna was his devotee and his dear friend, so it will be possible for him to understand those words of wisdom. Meaning to say that knowledge of Gita should be respected and it should not be misunderstood as something ordinary. Arjuna is a human being just like us, and so his mind is also filled with the same questions that we all may have. Arjuna asks Krishna that how could it be possible that Krishna instructed this knowledge to the god of sun, because the sun god was alive thousands of years ago while Krishna was standing there in front of Arjuna. Meaning to say that Krishna was born after a long time that the sun god left the world. So it should be noted that Arjuna is not suspicious, but he wants to understand that how was something like this possible. The devotee does not know everything, but the god does. Something which is visible from the eyes is very easy for everyone to know. On the other hand, only the god and the people with true knowledge are able to know that which is unexplained and invisible. Krishna tells Arjuna that they both have experienced many births and rebirths. Arjuna was not aware of all his lives, but Krishna knew them clearly. An important point to note here is that we should not consider Sri Krishna, who was the speaker in the Gita, as someone ordinary. He was the supreme power, he is the supreme power, and he'll always exist in the world as the supreme power. Now, while explaining his personality and significance, Krishna tells Arjuna that he has never taken birth and he can never die. In spite of being the Lord of all living beings, he surrenders to his nature and appears in every age through his power. The one who is born is certain to die. The existence of Krishna was just an illusion through which he presented himself in the human form so that he could live with the human beings. Krishna tells Arjuna that whenever there is a destruction of morality and a rise in the power of immorality and evil, he takes the human form and appears in the world. And this appearance is what is known as avatar. When there is immense rise in corruption and evil, then someone is required to make things right by controlling the situation. And so, for this purpose, Krishna takes the human form on earth. In order to re-establish morality and righteousness in the world, Krishna takes his birth in the human form in every age. It makes us wonder, what exactly is morality? The Supreme tells that for the sake of protecting the pious people who follow the principles of morality, and for destroying the evil people who commit sin, and for re-establishing the principles of religion and true knowledge, he appears age after age. In other words, morality can be understood as the protection and empowerment of the right people and destruction of the evil ones. Leaving the truth and supporting the wrong is immorality, and Krishna ensures that such an immorality comes to an end. The Lord tells that the person who understands that Krishna is not born in the world like them, such a person does not take rebirth when the body dies. Instead, that person directly reaches the Supreme. The birth of Krishna is divine and is indescribable. Thus, it is not very easy for someone to understand Krishna. In the next verse, Krishna tells that the people who have lost attachment, anger, and fear, who love Krishna, who are his devotees and who follow the instructions which he gives, those are the people who are able to reach him. In other words, the people who have controlled their senses and surrendered themselves to the Supreme, they surely obtain the divine grace. In order to truly understand this wisdom, we must first learn to control our feelings and stabilize our emotions. Krishna tells Arjun that he rewards the devotees in the same manner as they reward him, meaning to say that the one who understands the knowledge and instructions which is given by Krishna is in a way absorbed in Krishna. The true devotion is indicated by our willingness and our ability to follow the instructions of the Supreme Lord. Krishna tells that the people who want the fruits of their actions, they worship the gods because men are able to get results from their work very quickly if they follow the instructions of Krishna. So while we should be engaged in work, we should also ensure that we have adequate faith in the Supreme Being. Now Krishna reminds us of the truth of the society which we have forgotten. The Lord tells that he has created the 4 classes of humans, that is Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya and Shudra, on the basis of the modes of nature and the work in accordance with those modes. What we regard as caste is actually a result of our work and not merely birth. For instance, if a person is born in a pious family but engages in all the sinful acts, then we cannot regard that particular person as a moral person. Meaning to say that not our birth, but it is our work and the actions which we perform which helps us in making a name in this world. In the next verse, the Supreme Lord tells that one should perform work as a duty with full devotion, but one should not be entangled in the fruits of those actions. We shouldn't merely pray to God for results and favorable situations. Instead, with faith and courage, we should do our duty and surrender everything else to the Supreme. Krishna tells Arjun that in the ancient ages, people used the way of performing duty as a path to liberation. So if Arjun wants liberation, he should also perform his duty and follow the footsteps of such people. While explaining the ways of forefathers, Krishna wants Arjun to understand that before him, many people were able to reach the Supreme by understanding the concept of action without attachment to fruits. The Lord tells that even the intelligent people are amazed and surprised in deciding that what exactly is action and inaction. In order to remove this confusion, the Lord tells that he shall explain the true meaning of action, knowing which Arjun shall be free from his attachment and his misfortune. We often use the word action, but now Krishna will explain the actual difference between action and inaction. Once we are able to understand the same, we can embrace the path of true action and forge forward in our lives. God tells that it is very important for us to know and understand about action, inaction, as well as forbidden action, because action is a concept which is not so easy to understand. Though these words may sound philosophical, but once we start understanding and applying them in our practical life, we will be able to deal with a lot of troubles with extreme ease. Krishna tells that the person who sees action in inaction and inaction in action, such a person is more intelligent than the average person, and such a yogi is able to perform all the prescribed duties with ease. By seeing inaction in action, a person does not boast about himself. Such a person indulges in action by thinking it as his or her duty. Another possible explanation could be that when a person is doing something which he truly likes, then that action seems like inaction to him because he loves the craft which he is performing. While further explaining about action, Krishna tells that the person who performs work without any desire or determination to get something, and the one whose actions are performed with perfect fire of knowledge, such a person is regarded as a true worker even by the sages. In simple words, we need to indulge in the right action with moral principles to perform our duty. Then Krishna mentions that the person who gets rid of attachment to work and results, one who is independent of the outcome and has faith in the Supreme, such a person, in spite of being involved in action, does not really feel any load of working. The person who while performing work has no desire for the results. Such a person achieves progress by bringing forward his best work. Without thinking much about the future, we should be present in this moment and we should indulge ourselves in action. Now the Lord explains the developed situation of the yogi to Arjun. The person who has gained perfect control over the mind and the senses, such a person is the true yogi. As far as the mind is concerned, it keeps on adding new desires to the unlimited ocean of wants. But the true worker is not impacted by the unstill nature of the mind. He indulges in action but gives up the desire to have proprietorship over anything. The one who is content with whatever he or she receives from action, the one who is not envious or jealous of the progress which others make, the one who is not impacted much by either joy or sorrow, the person who is steady and equal in both success and failure, such a person, in spite of engaging in different activities, is not attached to them. The person situated in the true yoga of action is able to gain control over his desires and end his attachment to the material pleasures. Such a person is not even proud of his body and never dominates anyone by expressing his strength. He does not allow his mind to become a victim of attachment. He clearly understands that everything is only temporary. Such people have their minds fixed in intelligence, and following the path of intelligence, such people perform their work with pure devotion. As a result of this immense self-control, these people achieve progress. Though this path is difficult, it is certainly not impossible. The person who is absorbed in Krishna, who works with spirituality, is sure to receive the results which are also spiritual in nature, meaning to say that if we perform our actions with Krishna in our heart, then we will surely reach the goal. Some yogis believe the gods to be the supreme and they offer sacrifices to these gods. It doesn't matter if we worship Shiv, Durga or any other god for that matter. We should remember that our work is also a sacrifice in itself, and surrendering everything to the Supreme, we should indulge in our work and carry out our duties. When anything enters fire, it is burned and it turns into ashes. So here Krishna refers to self-control as fire. Krishna tells that the yogi, the true yogi, surrenders his senses and the sensual pleasures in the fire of self-control, and he turns his desires into ashes. But the people who are ignorant, they do the exact opposite. Such people who have no sense of self-control, they burn everything in the fire of their senses. If anyone speaks something offensive, then such people are filled with anger. The progress of others fills such people with jealousy. Krishna tells that the best way to control the senses and the mind is through knowledge. It is only through knowledge that we are able to distinguish between good and bad in order to make the appropriate choice. The Lord tells that the people who wish to achieve self-realization offer their senses and their breath into the fire of the controlled mind. Every person has a different battle, and so the duties of individuals are also different from each other. These different duties require different types of sacrifices. Some people may sacrifice their possessions, some may indulge in penance, some may sacrifice through yoga, and some may turn to the Vedas for obtaining knowledge. We need to understand our battle and choose our actions. This is undoubtedly true because the actions which are required from a person who has financial problems in the family is different from the actions that may be required from the son of a millionaire. Now Krishna explains about the pranayama yoga, which is a way of controlling the process of breathing. He tells that the people who use breath as a medium to obtain the supreme truth, they try to restrain their breath. Such people have perfect control over the incoming and the outgoing breath. Through pranayama, we are able to gain control of the senses, and this is what the Lord is also trying to explain. Krishna explains the importance of sacrifices, and he tells Arjuna that those who understand the true meaning of sacrifice become free from sinful reactions by tasting the nectar which results from such sacrifices, and this nectar helps a person in reaching the Supreme. And for those people who do not indulge in sacrifices, this world is never peaceful, and neither do such people receive peace after death. We can also assume this sacrifice is action or work that we humans are expected to perform, or maybe the prescribed duties that we all are expected to carry out. The fruits that we receive from our actions should be treated as the blessings of the Supreme God, and without being impacted by the same, we should move ahead towards our next duty. Krishna tells that different types of sacrifices have been mentioned in the Vedas. If Arjuna understands those sacrifices from the mind, senses and intelligence, then he will be liberated from all the sins. The Lord tells that compared to the sacrifice of material possessions and comforts, the sacrifice which is done after obtaining knowledge is much better. In one type of sacrifice, we request the gods to come and we offer them ghee and other ceremonial things. Another type of sacrifice is that which is done in perfect knowledge, under which we try to control our senses, our breath, and perform our duties without expecting anything in return. All these are a part of sacrifices in knowledge, and they are better than ordinary sacrifice of material possessions. And so, knowledge in a way directly connects us to the Supreme. Arjuna was present in front of the Supreme God, but we are ordinary human beings and we cannot see God directly. The Lord tells that if we are unable to understand this truth, then we must approach the people who are situated in knowledge and we must seek wisdom from them. If we do not regard knowledge as important, then we will continue to live our life with misconceptions and struggles. Through Arjuna, Krishna instructs us to understand the true wisdom from learned people who are aware of the truth. By rendering service to such people, if we question them with faith, then such people will definitely clear our doubts and answer our questions. The unintelligent people are not really bothered about their purpose or objective in life. Once we obtain the true knowledge, we will get rid of all confusions and act in accordance with the instructions of the Supreme. Krishna tells that even if a person has committed more sins than any other sinner, even for such a great sinner, the boat of knowledge will help that particular person to get out of the ocean of sin and evil. We shouldn't misunderstand this verse by thinking that if we first commit a sin and then obtain knowledge, then we will get rid of those sins always. Here Krishna wants to mention that no person should doubt his or her ability to obtain knowledge, because every person who has the willingness can definitely obtain knowledge. Through that knowledge, not only a person can become free from faults, but also become better than ignorant people. The Lord tells Arjuna that just like the fire turns wood into ashes, in the same way, the fire of knowledge turns the reaction to material actions into ashes. Meaning to say that when we are in knowledge, our attachment to the fruits of the action, or even to actions for that matter, is completely vanished. This shouldn't be misunderstood that we stop our actions and we stop working. Krishna wants to say that when in knowledge, a person indulges in action, but not for the sake of results, merely as his duty. Knowledge can purify every individual. In the course of time, many people have obtained this knowledge by practicing yoga of action with devotion. If a person is not curious and willing to learn the true knowledge, then he will never be able to do so. If we give rise to a question in our mind for true knowledge, then we can obtain this wisdom through consistent action. In other words, a person with a pure heart who is curious is ready to work without attachment. Such a person is the one who can obtain knowledge. The Supreme Lord mentions that the people who gain control of the senses, who are hardworking in nature, and who have faith in the Supreme are able to obtain knowledge. And when such people obtain knowledge, then without delay, he or she experiences peace through the divine. While writing an examination, if we are aware of the answers, then the exam appears very easy. In the same way, the person who is trying to control the senses, who has faith towards the Supreme, it doesn't take much time for that particular person to surrender to the truth of the world. to know the truth of the world. When we are aware of the truth, it becomes easy for us to handle circumstances which are external. The person who has no faith, who cannot decide between right and wrong, who has suspicions in the mind, such a person is bound to lose significance and experience darkness. Such a person cannot find peace in this world or the supreme world. The life of such a person becomes absolutely meaningless. There is no difference between the existence and the non-existence of such a person who has no curiosity to know anything and no willingness to do anything. Shri Krishna then tells that the person who, by following the principles of yoga of action, surrenders all his actions to the Supreme and has killed all his doubts through intelligence, such a self-controlled person is not attached or bound by work. Such a person does every task with absolute humility without any expectations. It should be noted that if our mind is filled with doubt, then we will never be able to take any rational decision. Krishna now tells Arjun that he should use the sword of knowledge to kill the doubts in his mind which arise due to ignorance. He tells Arjun to be situated in the yoga of action and become ready for war. An important lesson that we should learn here is that whenever we are surrounded by doubts and darkness in life, then following the principles of yoga of action, we should immerse ourselves in the performance of our duty without thinking much about the outcome. With this, we have come to the end of the 4th chapter of this ocean of wisdom, where the Lord provided light on action, inaction, as well as true knowledge. Hope the podcast was valuable, and now we shall meet in the 5th chapter of the Gita to resume our journey. Thank you so much once again for joining in, and stay tuned for the next episode.